Welcome to But Jesus Drank Wine.
And other stories that kept us stuck. I'm Mead.
And I'm Christy.
And in this podcast, we'll explore the stories that kept us, stuck, wanting to drink and not wanting to drink all at the same time.
Join us as we show you that freedom from alcohol does not have to mean a life sentence of misery and missing out,
but actually means living an authentic life full of peace, joy, and purpose.
Do you ever do a dry January, Christy?
Oh my gosh, yes, I did. I did a dry January a few times in order to prove to myself that I didn't have a quote-unquote problem with alcohol. And one of two things happened. Either I didn't make it all the way through, or I did, and I went back to drinking just as much on February 1st.
Yes. One of the things during my dry January attempts that was worse than almost drinking was the noise, the mental real estate that alcohol occupied during that time, even though I wasn't drinking, which was so bizarre to me. But I'm so excited because we get to do dry January with an amazing group of gals, totally different.
Yes. So we are going to be coaching through my book together, Love Life Sober, a 40-day alcohol fast in our beautiful community. We would love you to join us. We are going to kick off on January 6th. We're going to be meeting for 6 weeks. All the calls will be recorded, and we are going to pop all the information for you in the show notes. Head down there, click on the link. We can't wait for you to join us. Hello, my beautiful friend. I am so excited to introduce you to a new friend of ours, Anna Mather. Passionate about taking therapy out of the therapy room, Anna Mather is widely celebrated for her accessible mental health advice and the light bulb moments which she offers across her platforms, including Instagram, her best-selling books, and her popular podcast, The Therapy Edit, which has had over 3 million downloads, and the resources available in the Anna Mather Toolkit. Often told through her own experiences, Anna has a unique approach to mental health, whether it's providing advice on anxiety, coping with overwhelm, or encouraging self-worth. This is a really, really great conversation. I loved recording this so much. Her new book, The Uncomfortable Truth, Change Your Life by Taming 10 of Your Greatest Fears, is out right now. We're going to talk to Anna about, oh my gosh, so many great things. Her alcohol-free journey, how faith has played a role in her alcohol-free journey. There's so many beautiful nuggets and words of wisdom in this episode. It's one of my favorites that we've done. So without further delay, here is our conversation with Anna Mather. Hi, friends. Happy Monday. Welcome back to the pod. We're so excited to have our new friend Anna Mather here today. Hey, babe. How are you?
Hello. I am great. I said I feel a little bit starstruck because I've probably listened to pretty much every single one of your episodes. So I've known you a lot longer than you've known me.
I don't think
really
so,
lovely.
because I think I started following you on Instagram forever ago because I loved, because I loved everything that you were doing and the way that you make some of the concepts that we talk about here. You just make them so digestible and relatable to the moms that are listening to you, which is so cool.
Thank you. Just sharing the inner workings of my own mind, knowing that I won't be alone, and just throwing them out there with a bit of psychology stuck in.
Yeah, it's so good. Will you do a little intro? Because I know you gals can hear the amazing British accent. Most of our listeners are in the US. And so I'm a big fan of Anna. All of the UK is a big fan of Anna. But can you tell the gals in the US a little bit more about you?
Yeah, so I am a psychotherapist. I've been a therapist for years now, and I did a lot of clinical work. So the whole sit in a room with 2 chairs, a box of tissues, talking about your childhood. Done a lot of that in doctor's surgeries and private practices over the years. And then I had my second child, had a real roller coaster. He had silent reflux, and it just, there was a lot of crying, and it really stripped me back as a person. I just realized that I really needed people. And I think as a therapist, I just tried to legitimize my people pleasing and make it into a profession as well. So I wasn't just like the go-to for all my friends. I'd made that into my actual paid job as well. So it was like every part of my life, I found it so much easier to be there for other people than I found it letting people be there for me. So going through a really hard time after having my second child cracked me open a little bit. Not all the way. I had a way to go. And I just started sharing some of that experience on social media. And this was probably about 8 years ago now. And just sharing some of those feelings that I was untangling, like intrusive thoughts and challenges of identity and perfectionism, and how that doesn't translate into motherhood. By the way, it perfectionism and motherhood don't go very well together. And so I was just sharing this out there along with my psychotherapeutic insight, mostly because I was just analyzing everything that I was thinking and just thinking,
Yeah.
well, this is a lot. This guilt is a lot. How might I apply my knowledge to that? And that's just where it grew from there, really. And then I write books and I have a podcast called The Therapy Edit, and I do all sorts of anything really that communicates this compassion focused, yeah, just personal insight, psychotherapy, light bulb moments, and those moments that people go, oh my gosh, I never thought about it like that before. And we start seeing things differently. That's just what I love. But I'm a Christian, and that's also why I love your podcast. So there's a whole nother thread that runs alongside that, where I've worked in churches. I've worked in churches before. Running the women's ministry for a church in London was my more recent role. And yeah, so there's the face side of it that I do share kind of bits about on social media and little bits in my book, but that's another reason I've loved your podcast, is the interweaving of these two threads of conversation. So it's great to be here.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. And as I said, I just love how you take the therapy content like concepts that we all need to know and you make them so accessible to the real life situations of moms and women that you. And so we're just so happy to have you
Mm.
here. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
To you. Yeah. It's great to be here. We need to know this stuff, like everything that I'm speaking out on social media and writing about is because I need to be hearing it all the time. These coming at ourselves with a bit more compassion, considering like where there might be hope, where we feel hopeless. Like, I am having to speak these words over myself daily. It's not a one and done thing. So it actually really serves me well, the fact that I'm doing this as a job, because I'm hearing it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the perfect marriage. Then you found something where you're serving other people and meeting their needs, but also at the same time meeting yours.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was just all about people
So
pleasing, meeting
true.
other people's needs. So
Well done.
So true.
So, how has alcohol played a role in your getting to be where you are now? And what's the story there?
Wow. I was thinking about this on my walk and knowing that you were going to ask me this question, and just thinking all the way back to childhood. And I think, if I'm honest, I never really felt at home in myself. I never really felt emotionally safe in myself. I was always wrapping emotion up, making it neater. I was always swallowing down my needs, my feelings in order to be easier. And I think that came about because when I was a young child, my sister got diagnosed with a brain tumor. Our life for a long time was all about that. Understandably, there were points actually. My son, I've got three kids, they're 5, 8, and 10. My son asked me last night randomly, because they do think about these things. They want to know about their aunt who died when she was young and imagine what she'd be like. And one of my kids asked me, "Did you ever stay in the hospital?" And I said, "Yeah, my life when I was your age looked very different to how it looks for you. There were points when we were living in a children's hospital in a big city of Birmingham in England, because she was having brain surgery. And obviously both parents wanted to be there. And me and my brother, we'd stayed in the family area of this hospital. And everything was just, there was so much fear and uncertainty and that kind of preemptive grief. And I think my way of dealing with that was just to be good and neat. And I just didn't want to add anything to what was already going on. There was so much pain and fear. And yeah, I wanted to make it easier for people. So for my parents, especially. So I think I just internalized a lot. And I think I just never really felt calm. I found silence really hard. I found being on my own really hard. And I would just busy my way through life 100 miles an hour. People ask how I write books. And it's just so easy for me to do everything fast, high functioning, perfectionist. That's my past really. And alcohol just, it gave me a break from myself. It, it, it made me feel like I wasn't fully there. And I think for me, that there was something therapeutic about that because being me just felt really intense
Mhm.
because I was left when there was quiet, when there was calm, when the kids were in bed at the end of the day, or I was just left with myself, and that didn't feel very easy. And I found it very hard to rest.
Mhm.
I found it very hard to slow down. I think because for me, chaos was in parts emotionally or life wise was just home. Chaos was
Yeah.
my home. And alcohol, I think, it just depressed that. It switched it off. And I like that about it. So I never, it's a very grey area drink. If I tell people, there were points when I say I'm really going to cut down my drinking, and friends would ask how much I drank, and then they'd laugh at me.
Mhm.
People would laugh at me, but it was never about how much. For me, it was about what it did.
Mhm.
It was about what it was softening and what it was covering up and what it was anesthetizing. And I remember being at a friend's house. So drinking was a daily thing. I would put the kids to bed and that would be my thing. It was a treat that I didn't question. I really didn't question it because everyone around me was doing the same thing.
Mhm.
But I
Mhm.
just knew I had this stirring in my heart and my soul that it just wasn't for me. It wasn't it I needed more than that. As in not more alcohol. I just needed to find a home in myself.
Yeah.
And alcohol was stopping me from doing that. And I think that stirring in my soul just became harder and harder to ignore. And
Mhm.
what I love that God did with it was that He didn't push me, He didn't rush me. I just kept asking Him to change my heart for this, change my desire. And I was reading, I was listening to podcasts, I was listening to your podcast, I was reading about the science. And I just thought, wow, why has no one told me this? Why are we all
Mhm.
just doing this? And I felt like I'd been making an uninformed decision every single day. And I felt I'm a I'm a clever person, right? I've got a lot of education under my belt. But it was like, how can I have never known what I thought I was relaxing? I thought this was my right. I thought I was switching off, but actually what I was really doing was revving myself up. I got a
Mhm.
bio data watch, I've got a Garmin, and suddenly being able to see what was happening to my sleep, suddenly being able to see what was happening when I was lying on the sofa thinking I was resting, thinking I'd
Yeah.
got my off switch. I was switched on. I was
Yeah.
switched on. And I was lying there, my heart was racing. I was lying there, I was in bed, and I just thought it was very normal for me to get up and go for a wee and drink a pint of water in the middle of the night. I just thought that's just how I sleep. But yeah, I just did not know. But it doesn't mean that was a moment in which everything changed. It's a moment where there were cracks that started to form through this
Mhm.
mechanism that for me had been about finding a way to be with myself. And it took 2 years, I'd say, of just challenging, observing, reading, starting, stopping, thinking about moderating. But it was always that actually that drink for me, it was the meaning. It was what I was leaning towards it for. It was the break. I wanted a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little bit about it. And parenting is challenging for me. And one of my kids is autistic. So that adds another layer of demand. And what I have found is that I wanted to be a really good parent. I wanted to be considerate and gentle and responsive, but I was reactive and irritable and tired. And I didn't realize that alcohol had been robbing me
Mhm.
of my patience. And that breaks my heart. I just thought I was an impatient person. I thought I was just constantly stressed and on the edge. And I didn't realize that all the books I was reading, or the podcasts I was listening to, all of that alcohol was actually robbing me of the ability to actually access that when I needed to. And I think
Mhm.
that's sad for me.
Mhm.
It robbed me and I didn't really realize it, but now I do. And I think I have to have grace for that version of me that was just using what everyone else was using to get a break.
Yeah, 100%. Babe, I love everything that you just said because it's so relatable, and I also really love that you said 2 years because that can seem very overwhelming to the gal that feels stuck right now, but I feel like it's a good way to flag that is reality of how long it takes for us to, as you said, learn the science, try a couple go rounds with moderation, all of that stuff, and find the new ways, which I'm assuming you do like, and that's my next question is, like, what are the ways that you have found to, like, then have that space for yourself and take that break and find that quiet? What are the things that you have found that you've added in that you were trying to get from alcohol that you couldn't?
Yeah, it was the stuff I was doing before. It was going on the walks, it was talking to friends, it was taking the baths, it was limiting kind of social media use, all of those things that I was doing before, but they were just never enough.
Mhm.
And I think really starting to value and respect myself, starting to cherish myself, starting to, I think one of the biggest learnings was that when I thought I was resting, I wasn't.
Mhm.
When I thought I was treating myself with the glass of wine or the gin and tonic, I was actually harming myself. And I think that's what I didn't realize. So as soon as I started learning and understanding that, those 2 years were a real learning. And I never wanted to have alcohol to feel like alcohol had been wrestled out of my grip. I
Mhm.
tried doing that. I tried stopping, and I'd feel like I'd resent that I wasn't drinking. I'd feel like a toddler being like, this isn't fair. Everyone else is letting their hair down, and I'm just sat here with social anxiety, and this isn't fair. And I remember thinking, right, I'm going to have a drink again. And I did. And it was really interesting because I could just observe myself. So it was allowing myself the grace to change and learn and get to a place. And I knew that this is where God wanted me to get to and where God would take me to. And as an all or nothinger who wants to push things along faster, this was really hard. But I trusted that He'd get me to a place where it wasn't a case of having to peel my white knuckles off my gin and tonic. I
Mhm.
wanted it to be a letting go
Yeah.
that felt right and I was ready for it. And that's where I got to just 2.5 months ago now. And I've been moving towards that place for 2 years. And I feel peaceful that it's right. And I've had my tantrums and I've had my wrestling and my
Sure.
grappling, and I still do sometimes. But yeah, just feels right.
Yeah.
I think and it's so relatable, and everything you just described, like, what I keep coming back to is what we just repeat over and over here is just the curiosity. If you go into it with a mindset, if you start the journey with a mindset of, the curiosity about it, you wanted to learn the science, you expanded your mind, your knowledge, your learning about it, and then you had the experience of going through it that helped build these new pathways that then say as officially, yeah, it's not true. And I think that's just such an important point to continue to make as we do here that it all comes back to how we think about that. The freedom comes from where we're calling out the lies of what we were previously thinking about what alcohol did, and then the curiosity of does it actually do that? And let me try it and see what is different. But I love what you describe. And it is when you're doing it from that place of curiosity, it takes what it takes to build those new pathways in a different direction. So well
Yeah.
done you.
Thank you. And I think another big part of it for me has just been finding emotional safety. Journaling, getting out and reading my Bible, doing my writing stuff down in the morning. That has been really important for me. Just, yeah, finding ways and spaces and places just to externalize emotion. And so basically, there was a night. I live in a development, and everyone was drinking. Everyone's been drinkers. We'd get together with the kids. There would be prosecco. We'd get together at a weekend. There would be wine, and then we'd end up the kids would end up staying late, and then we'd end up putting the kids down at someone else's house just so that we could carry on. And that was just kind of part of the culture. And I remember going one evening to one of those friends' houses, and she was drinking non-alcoholic gin. I was like, that is very strange for you. You are the
Yeah.
least person I would expect to be doing such a thing. Are you pregnant with number four? And she was like, no, I'm actually just only drinking on the weekend now. And I remember just being so surprised and disturbed. And the most upsetting thing for me was the immediate thought of I couldn't do that.
Mhm.
And then because I'm very stubborn, I was like, oh, whoa, what is that? That I
Mhm.
don't like to feel like something is controlling me. So I
Mhm.
just, that set me off on this path of experimenting, exploring with drinking less and being like, fine, I'm not going to drink until Thursday. Because Thursday, university, Thursday was basically Friday in London. Thursday's basically Friday. Everyone starts
Yeah.
drinking on a Thursday.
It's Little Friday. Yeah.
Yeah,
Little
Little
Friday.
Friday. So I was like, obviously, I've got to drink on Little Friday because it's Little Friday. So I won't drink Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I started with that. And I'd battle through those days. It'd be like really leaning towards Thursday. And then Thursday morning would come and I'd be like, oh, it's the day. And actually, what happened is as time went on, those drinking days would be less and less of an excitement and more of an anxiety. I'd be like, oh my
Ooh, feels
gosh,
good.
I'm going to sleep
Mhm.
so badly on Thursday night. I'm going to sleep so badly because I'd start seeing the benefits, right? I'd be sleeping better. I'd be calmer in my body. Like my nervous system felt calmer. So I'd start feeling slightly anxious about the days that I was drinking. So it
Mhm.
slowly started changing. And then I went to only drinking twice a week. And then it was only once a week. And then it would creep up and down depending on whether it was summer or whether it was Christmas or whether it was rosé time and it was always just this kind of playing around. But I started really noticing how much headspace that was consuming and just really feeling the difference in my body between the days that I did and didn't drink. And then, yeah, it just went from there. And I think that it was gentle. But I remember God saying to me once I went on a walk and I remember him saying, you need to stop drinking for 6 months. I'm asking you. And I was like, okay, because this is where I was at. I was waiting really to feel challenged. I went home and I said to my husband, and I'd already said to God, I'm not expecting him to do it with me. And I said, I feel like God's telling me to stop drinking for 6 months. And he was like, immediately off the bat, I'll do it with you. Anyway, I
Aw.
did it for 4 months. I was mega hormonal, feeling really just stressed. And I remember being like, sod it, I'm going to have wine with my sister-in-law. And I did. And it was all of those moments I took as a learning opportunity. My husband, however, carried on with his non-drinking. And I think he's well into, he's over a year now. But I'm back on it with him, off it, on it, off it. And I just love, that I've let my way meander to where I am. And like many other things in life, I haven't forced it, but trusted it.
Yeah.
Imagine stepping into a vibrant, warm community where faith, friendship, and freedom from alcohol all come together. That's exactly what you'll experience in the But Jesus Drank Wine community.
Each week, our members gather for connection calls that feel like a breath of fresh air, a time to share, grow, and support one another.
With an encouraging leadership team, a dedicated prayer request space, and connection opportunities in every time zone, you don't have to walk this journey alone.
Plus, we bring you masterclasses with expert guests, optional book clubs and Bible studies, and so much more.
And for those ready to go even deeper, we offer a small group coaching space called The Missing Piece. With weekly recorded coaching calls, it's a supportive place for women committed to breaking free from alcohol.
We're here to hold space for sober and sober-curious women who love Jesus or are eager to reconnect with him. Wherever you are on your path, you'll feel seen, supported, and strengthened here.
As one member described, quote, the BJDW community is unique because there's a connection between faith and freedom from alcohol that I haven't been able to find in any other online space or through my church.
Ready to join the sisterhood? Head over to butjesusdrankwine.com/community or click the link in the show notes to learn more. We can't wait to meet you. I I love that the way that you described you're seeing one of your girlfriends like with this non-alcoholic G&T, because it's such a good reminder for all of us and the listeners that like if you get a reaction out of anyone because you're not drinking, it's because of that person, right? Like it's all the things that her not drinking was you making that mean all these other things, right? Shoot, should I be doing that? Wait, what is it? Do I have to do that? Blah blah blah. And so it's such a good reminder. And you did a post recently on the Instagram about not going to a party or do you want me there because I don't want to be there? It was like that one. And I resonated with that so much. And if we're talking about going alcohol free and other people, like what has that been like for you? But also how teaching what you teach and helping women the way that you help them, has this made it easier for you because it's so much clearer that you're able to set these boundaries? I feel like I just asked like
Yeah.
7 questions in one. Like,
Yeah. With
what does that
people
look like? Yeah, with the
around
people.
me. I think as in more recent years, loads of my friends have been exploring the same thing. So it's very normal now for me to go to a evening at a friend's house and for their 3 of us not to be drinking. So I remember taking some non-alcoholic cocktails in little cans, thinking, "Oh, these are mine, right?" I got there. I just had to divvy them out because there were so many people not drinking. So friendship-wise, it's been absolutely fine. I must say, what has been hard for me is that it was such a social crutch for me. Inherently, I'm a real introvert. People wouldn't find that particularly easy to believe. I have a very extrovert job. So with that feeling of feeling safe and comfortable in my body, alcohol just anesthetized that discomfort and anxiety.
Mhm,
So these days I go into parties and places and I have to sit with myself.
mhm.
I'm there as a more authentic version of myself. I'm not numbing the uncomfortable parts. So I'm growing in confidence. And there are a lot of places and spaces I don't want to go to now.
Mhm,
I don't have that method of kind of buffering myself.
mhm,
So I'm probably being a lot more authentic.
mhm.
Uh, but yeah, so it's just changed. It's changed. And I'm glad my husband is on this journey with me in a very different way because both of us want to go home at 9:30. Both of
Yeah.
us might think, "Oh, I don't really think I've got the capacity." Because what I would have done is no matter how tired I was, no matter how little sleep I'd have got, poured myself a massive G&T, put on more makeup, and headed out there. Yeah.
Mhm,
No,
mhm.
whereas now it's just more honoring and it's more
Yeah.
authentic.
Mm. Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah.
To the gal that's listening and finds it hard to say no to those invitations because they use alcohol as that like crutch in societal conditions, what would you say to her?
I would say if you are going to go, just set expectations that you might not be there long.
Mhm,
Take some drinks with you that you absolutely love. Have an ally. Just make sure that someone knows. And if the host is a friend that's invited you, just be really honest and say, you might not understand why, because you might not have thought that my drinking was an issue, but actually I'm cutting it out because this is what I need to do. And I find it quite hard at this point to be around lots of people drinking. So, like, just really being honest, because that's what I think
mhm,
not drinking enables you to turn up more authentically. So, actually, if you can pave the way beforehand with some honest words, if you feel like actually stepping into that environment is going to take capacity from me that I do not have right now, yeah, what I would do would probably again be honest, be like, I'm really frazzled at the minute. And I just don't think I'd be in a like I wouldn't be the life and soul of the party. So can we actually just meet for coffee like next week instead?
mhm,
Because I'd really love to see you. So
mhm,
just again, just being honest with people on what I tend to do these days. If I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go feeling hot. Like I'm gonna overdress probably. I'm gonna put on like my favorite lipstick. I'm gonna and I'm like, if I'm not drinking, I want to feel really lovely. I want to wear
mhm,
something that feels really comfortable or really sparkly or whatever that feels like or looks like for me, just to turn up feeling really great. That's what I'm
Yeah.
going to do.
I love that. I love that. When you're not drinking, you have all the money for all the blow dries and all the makeup and all the sparkles.
And you can often drive. So then,
Yeah.
you got a getaway car.
Yeah.
Off you go. And that's such a good feeling when you drive away and you've got your music on or you've got quiet and silence when you've been in the bars and that sense of, oh, that was nice and now I'm going home and I'm going to
Yeah.
sleep well.
Yeah. I think the fear behind having that honest conversation is the first question that you discuss in the uncomfortable truth, right? Is the fear of people not liking you and not everybody's gonna like you.
Yeah.
And can you
Yeah.
speak a little
Yeah.
bit
Let's talk
about
about that.
that? Because I think I love the way that you speak about that. So yeah, hit us.
I, yeah, I think the fear of what people think about me and would think about me is actually what led me to find alcohol such a useful tool in the first place because I didn't feel comfortable. Just, I felt scared and nervous. It felt, yeah, like a scary thing to be me, to need people, to trust that people could respect boundaries or to maybe be willing to disappoint people. And actually, as I've learned these things, as I've started letting go of that fear of what other people think and just standing firm in my identity, like with my faith and my relationship with God, knowing that I am fundamentally, bottom line, foundationally loved and accepted and safe. Like when you stop searching for evidence of those things absolutely everywhere you look and you start living from a place of knowing that to be true, it's yeah, just it changes things and we don't need the cover-ups in the same way, I think. And just being open to disappointing people and open to growing into a different version of yourself that other people might not know. And I think that's yeah, it's an amazing thing, but it can confuse people when you change.
Mm-hmm.
And some people
Mm-hmm.
can be disappointed that you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to be drinking with them. And
Mm-hmm.
because they might take it personally or because they might feel that actually it makes them feel uncomfortable because they're left with their relationship with alcohol and reflecting on that. Maybe they're not ready to do that. So I think getting okay with disappointing people is
Mm-hmm.
such an important part of the puzzle.
Yeah. 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 And not just people pleasing till we're blue in the face, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And feeling responsible for other people's responses. And we can be kind and we can be honest. And that
And when
really
you're
is it.
Y yeah, when your identity is firmly planted in Christ, that becomes so much more available, like you
Mm.
said, and I think that was so true. Everything you're talking about is so relatable to my journey as well, and I didn't know it at the time that this is what I was doing, but the more it became more true that my identity was in Christ, the less it mattered what anybody else thought of me, and there is just so much freedom in that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's so good.
Totally. Yeah. And I think as we start holding healthier boundaries for ourselves and we become less fearful and
Yeah,
stop making decisions based on what other people want rather than what is right for us and in line with our values, actually, we have less of the discomfort to drink away. Like
Yeah.
we have, I, I can sit on my sofa in the evening and I can think, huh, I don't feel a need to scroll away my night on social media and then feel gross about it afterwards because I've got healthier boundaries there now and I can have an honest chat with my husband. So I'm not sitting at the end of the sofa feeling resentful about something that he did or didn't do yesterday. And I've got more calm and patience because I'm not drinking. So I've got less guilt. Sometimes there really is. And I have very messy parenting moments, but there's less guilt to, to be sitting there with. So actually it's starting to, yeah, feel that sense of safety and okayness with you because you're not conflicting with everything all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good, babe. It's so good. It's so true. I think that like we're all on this journey and we are becoming more authentic selves and figuring out like who we truly are in Christ and all the things that we all just said. things can still pop up. And now I'm going to talk from personal experience, guys. So there was a girls' trip that I just found out about
Oh God.
that I used to organize, that I got not included on. And it's fully because I don't party anymore and I don't drink and all these things. But even though like I know that I would have rather been home and on the sofa with my kiddos, it's still stung. It's still stung, even though I'd rather be at home. So can you speak a little bit to that? Because I know you also just did a podcast on this. What
Yeah.
happened? You feel left out and you feel like friends have moved on because and you know that you're doing the right thing for you, but it can still sting.
I think it's really normal to find those, it feels like abandonment, right?
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
feels like rejection. It feels like being left out. And actually, that is a really normal emotion to feel because as humans, we're pack animals. We're, yeah, we're created for community. So historically, if you think back to caveman and if you think back to generations ago, to be left out would have meant that you wouldn't be looked after. It meant that no one would be keeping an eye out for you. No one would be including you when they were out hunting, like in there. It was actually like quite a threat to life. So I think it's really deep in us when we feel rejected and we feel abandoned and we feel left out that something is triggered. And it can feel really
Mhm.
physical, can't it? We can feel a bit sick. It can set us into ruminating. We start looking for other clues. We start kind of building stories around all of this. But I think just calming our minds and just trying to anchor ourselves in the fact that actually I know I'm doing what is right for me. And I know that will be uncomfortable for other people, not because of who I am, but because of what it nudges in them. And I think it's just finding that sense of safety again, where any fear has been stirred up and panic has been stirred up, finding that home,
Mhm.
in yourself and in your soul and in God, and just feeling anchored and rooted and knowing that actually, oh, if friends are going to exclude you because you're no longer who they need you to be a part of that, what does that say about the depths and the richness of those relationships? And I think there can be a grief, right? For many years we build our lives and our relationships and alcohol is normally a feature. And when we take
Mhm.
that away, I think the changes in dynamics and friendships can say a lot about what those relationships had as the linchpin.
Yeah.
And it's okay to grieve the fact that actually I really thought those friendships meant more than
Mhm.
that. But
Yeah.
actually, maybe that friendship group that's really integral to it, and without me doing that with them, that connection no longer exists in the way. So I think it's okay to be sad, but I think
Mhm.
to find your safety, to reground, and then think, okay, where do I where do I want to put that energy instead of just spending all of that time ruminating and writing a million messages in my head? Where do I want to focus that energy? Is there a friend that actually really gets me that I can go and spend some time with? Or, yeah, what might I do now to remind myself that this is good, this is right?
Yeah. And hard. And two things can be true at the same time.
Just gonna say, yeah, allowing them both to be true, right? And
Absolutely.
I just had this wild thought too, Christy. Perhaps because awareness is when you come into awareness of maybe feeling conflict around your relationship to alcohol or whatever it is, you come into that awareness that's painful and your instinct is to turn away from anything that brings that pain on. And I just wonder, I don't know, that perhaps this is a good sign that you being the light and going ahead of your girlfriends in this way is actually influencing them in a positive way.
Oh,
I don't know about that.
you see, you
It
never
you
know.
you can't
You never
change
know.
without awareness, and
Never know.
so it's not, yeah, it's probably not personal, but I just really I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. You never know. And I think I had friends that I remember a girl at uni, she didn't drink and she was like this enigma. We just didn't get it. And then actually, I think over the years, you just turn to remember those people along the path that actually sparked something, be it confusion, be it asking questions of yourself. And I think you never know who might come back to you and say, Chrissy, I'm sorry we left you out, but it was really uncomfortable. We just feel like we didn't know you when you weren't this person anymore. And I think sometimes people can feel quite judged, no matter how
Mhm.
unjudged they are, because they are holding questions and shame for
Yeah.
themselves. So when they're faced with someone who's no longer doing what they are doing, it's really uncomfortable. It just pushes and points on that, even if you're not doing any pushing or any pointing.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. I just never thought that like here 4 or 5 years then that like I think you when you go into it, you think you know who's going to stick around and who you're still gonna have relationships with, but I think there's the ones that I'm now learning at where there's in some sort of like weird murky middle ground when you're like, "Oh, that's not the friendship that I thought it was." And so I think it like almost gets you from the side, right? Because it's not like I'm not upset at the person that like organized the trip because I know she doesn't like to hang out with me because I don't drink anymore. That's obvious. But it's the other people that I didn't get the call from that said the thing of, we feel really weird not going on this trip without you. And so those are the stings, but I'm glad we're talking about it because I think hopefully it will help someone like listening to this. That's okay that it hurts. And it's also okay to want to be home instead or wherever you want to be because we're becoming, like you said, the gals that God wants us to be. So,
Mhm. Yeah. And it creates space in the end, different space for different relationships and different depths of the
totally.
same relationships because we only have so much
Yes.
social capacity
Yeah.
and social battery. It's hard
Yes.
and it's sad, but I think realizing that, yeah. So if we really knew how little these things were actually to do with who we are, like the soul of who we
Mhm.
are, and more
Totally.
to do with that person and what they're going through and where they're at, actually, it would be such a relief.
Yeah. And by the way, I just want to hang out with people where we can talk about the soul of who we are.
Yeah.
And not the superficial BS baloney. I mean,
I just want to
Come
point,
over to the States, girl.
Conquer.
I'm on a flight.
Yes.
Let's go.
Anna, oh my gosh, we could talk to you all day long, but we give us, and I think we're just probably gonna have to have you back when you can find time.
Love
But
that.
tell us one little tiny Tina for our audience, please.
I think, and this is, I wish, as we always wish that we'd learned things before, we've got to have grace for ourselves along the way. Just not labeling any emotion as bad and
Mhm.
just riding waves of emotion, imagining them like waves or contractions because they peak. Emotions peak and then they soften and they subside and they move and they pass and they have purpose. And once it's gone, we'll never feel that wave of that specific emotion that specific way. And I think so often what I did was the emotion started rising and I would just have a glass of wine or something to shut it down. When actually I think we can learn that we can withstand difficult emotion. We can withstand waves of grief, waves of loneliness. And if we hold ourselves, this is how we start to find us that sense of safety and home within ourselves because any emotion is okay.
Mhm.
We are stronger than that emotion. And there is somewhere we can go to God with these emotions. It's,
Mhm.
yeah. So just start trying to ride them out a little bit. And yeah, you just start feeling quite badass actually. You're like, wow, I actually went through some big stuff last year, big stuff. And I went through
Mhm.
it and I'm
Yeah.
out. And I survived. And I think sometimes, yeah, we believe the lie that we cannot do it.
Mhm.
We need alcohol, we need wine, we need to numb it, but actually we can. We're not
It's like
alone.
it's like labor pains. I never in a million years
Yes.
thought I'd be able to survive. Once those contractions started, I'm like, oh heck no. Like I'm literally not going to survive this. And then you do. And then you're like, oh, okay, let's do it again. And I think that is what I have found to be true in my post freedom from alcohol's journey is
Mhm.
that it's the same thing. It's, oh, okay, now I can do this. And baby number 2 and baby number 3 were a lot easier because baby number 1 and
You just
yeah.
knew you could. You knew you could. Be intense. There's always that moment where you're like, I can't do this, but you are. So ride, yeah, those waves. Trust that it will pass.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love
man.
that. I love that. Anna, can you tell the people where they can find you? And we'll put it all in the show notes as well.
Thank you. Just Instagram, Anna Martha. And then I've started something on Substack recently, which I'm absolutely loving. And it's called the
Yeah.
Frazzled Mums Club. And I just share lots on there. So I've done a workshop recently on navigating disappointment. There's a lot of that going on in this house. And I'm like, no, I am not doing elf on the shelf. I have got enough good capacity. It's Christmas and there's always something extra they want. So yeah, I think it's, just lots there around the stuff we've been talking about.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll definitely link that.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, babe. We really appreciate your time. Thank you. And hopefully we'll talk to you again really soon.
I'd love that. Thank you. I love
Yeah, let's do
chatting
it.
to you.
Thank you, Anna. So excited to know you now and follow you.
Thank you.
All right, gals. See you next Monday.
Thank you so much for joining us again this week. You can find all of our episodes at butjesusdrinkwine.com and be sure to follow us over on Instagram, Love Life Sober, and I'm Not Sober, I'm Free.
To learn more about what we do, you can visit our websites, meethollandshirley.com and lovelifesober.com.
Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it with a friend or two.
And don't forget to subscribe to our pod so you don't have to worry about missing a single episode. And if you love what we're doing, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify.
This helps more women who are feeling stuck and alone in the overdrinking cycle find hope and encouragement.
Thanks, ladies. We so appreciate you, and we'll see you next Monday.